Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. According to a new study, 93% of adults do not have good cardiometabolic health. Here to explain what that means and what we can do about it, we welcome back cardiologist Dr. Christopher Davis is back with us. Dr. Davis, so good to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. It's great to be back. Thank you for having me.
I just said a big word, cardiometabolic. What does cardiometabolic health mean?
So cardiometabolic, it is a big word. I think when we think about, let's look at it just from, we break the word down. Cardio obviously means cardio heart. And metabolic has a lot to do with how our body metabolizes or breaks down lots of the food that we eat primarily. And so metabolic, and when we talk about metabolic syndrome, what we're primarily talking about is how our bodies utilize the food that we eat, whether they're fats or carbohydrates or proteins. And that cardiometabolic syndrome has to do with, or cardiometabolic abnormalities have to do with insulin levels and glucose levels and other fatty acids, different types of lipids called triglycerides that build up in our system and can wreak some havoc at times. And so that's what the cardiometabolic syndrome, and this syndrome also includes hypertension and adiposity in the midsection as well. So that's the cardiometabolic syndrome.
When you're saying, though, 93% of people, 9 out of 10 people, I'm shocked to hear that stat. Are you shocked to hear that?
Unfortunately, I am not shocked to hear that stat. There are, when we look at the numbers and more over the course of the last 30 or 40 years, the cardiometabolic health has just gotten significantly worse, and every year it kind of worsens. And it really has to do with us really being not very well educated about our nutrition. At the end of the day, poor cardiovascular health or cardiometabolic health has to do with our sugar consumption or carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates like the breads, the pastas, the white potatoes that get broken down to sugar. And most people don't think about those carbohydrates getting broken down to sugar as rapidly as they do. Sure, donuts, coffees, cake, those type of ice cream, those things have lots of sugar. That's a no-brainer. But those things like the breads and the pastas get broken down to those sugars just as rapidly.
So how common is it that you see someone who looks the ideal weight, who seems like they're in shape and doing the right thing lifestyle-wise, have this problem?
Unfortunately, I mean, you don't always have to be obese to have cardiometabolic syndrome or cardiometabolic issues or poor metabolic health. So it's fairly frequent. There are some things we can do when we look at the labs. A lot of times when we look at people who are obese, or if you have hypertension, you can get that's an idea that these people may have cardiometabolic issues. However, there are other things there are other technologies. In my office, I use measurements of something called visceral fat. Visceral fat is the fat that is around our organs, fat that's around the heart, fat that's around our liver, fat that's around our intestines, not the subcutaneous fat that you can pinch. High levels of visceral fat are correlated with cardiometabolic issues. So that can give you some insight, and we can measure those with some of the technology we have these days. Are the devices. I'm sure you guys are in some facilities, your gym, you can step on those scales that have, you can put your hands on the metal pads up top and stand on it, and they measure that your body composition. And within that body composition, most technology these days are able to measure visceral fat as well. So that's a good surrogate marker for metabolic syndrome.
Yeah, would that be your biggest tip to those watching out there, is to kind of check out what that marker is? Or what would you say to people as far as when you're talking 9 out of 10, that's most people who are watching.
Right.
Talk to your doctor, cut out those carbs. Like, what would you say?
So cut out those carbs. Honestly, one of the things I would recommend for everybody is asking your doctor to check not just your blood sugar levels, but check your insulin levels. And most doctors don't routinely check insulin. And insulin is the earliest marker of metabolic problems because you develop an insulin resistance. So part of that whole metabolic syndrome is primarily driven by insulin resistance. So by measuring an insulin level, when the insulin level is very, very high, your glucose could be normal, but that insulin level being high is a sign that you are developing this metabolic derangements. So measuring your insulin level would be one of the things I would ask my physician for.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Davis. Always great tips. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. And we'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this. But first, welcome back to Afternoon